The seed of a creative idea does not die in mud and scum. Even there it will germinate and spread its blossom like a star shining in darkness.
Art can be an excellent gate for teachers to use as a way of introducing the subject of the Holocaust to their students. Art is very interpretive. Students can understand it in very different ways, and it often lends itself to interesting and deep conversations. The great thing about using art in your classroom is the teacher doesn't need to be an artist. She doesn't need to be an art historian. The artwork really lends itself for interpretation and conversation, and there is no right and wrong answer in how you interpret a piece of art. Another great thing about using art in your classroom is it raises questions seldom asked when you just deal with an historical subject. Because the student is relating, because the student is looking and giving feedback, it can take their understanding to a whole different level of the subject. There are several points to take into consideration before a teacher uses a piece of art. And I think the most important one is the context of where that art was created. Artwork created during the Holocaust was made in ghettos. It was made in concentration camps. It was made by people who were starving, people who had no strength, people who didn't have paper and pencils, people who didn't have access to art supplies. And yet that need to create was so strong that artwork was created. Unlike seeing the works of Picasso or Vermeer, when you look at a piece of Holocaust artwork, you have to understand the circumstances of the artist who created it. You have to know their biography, or if we know anything about the artist, to give context to the drawings or paintings we're looking at. So artists uses different means and medias to express themselves. Sometimes artists would use the portrait as a way of remembering a human being instead of a photograph, as saying that this person lived, this person left some kind of imprint on the planet. Sometimes art was used in a very sarcastic way, as a way of belittling the people who are making them suffer so much, humanizing them. Sometimes art was a way of an artist to express his inner world, a world that was trapped inside and not a world of the ghetto. And sometimes art came as a way of documenting the horrors that were happening around them. So it's important to understand the motivation in the artist creating the piece. Usually we can only guess, we can only infer what the artist meant. Unless the artist left a clear manifesto of what his ideas were, then we are just left with open-ended questions. We have to remember that Holocaust art does not represent the whole Holocaust. It never can, because most of what was created was lost. What we have left are little fragments, little bits and pieces. To appreciate and understand a piece of artwork, there are questions that one may ask to approach that work and kind of enter inside of it. The first thing we want to know is, what is the subject? Is the artist showing an individual? Is the artist showing an event? Is the artist showing a space or a place? And what was his purpose for making the artwork? Is he bearing witness? Is he showing a feeling or an emotion? Is he trying to capture a scene? Is he escaping through his artwork from the world that is surrounding him? What is the purpose of the artwork? The next thing the viewer wants to think about is the composition. Artists don't just stick a piece of work on a page. They purposely put it in different parts of the page to create a feeling or create a message. Where do the artists put the main element? Is it in the middle? Is it in the side? How does one's eye move from place to place in the picture? Colors also play a very important part in the artist's visual language. Are the colors solemn, dark, brooding? Are they light, happy, vibrant? The color choice is very deliberate by the artist. What is the artist's feelings about his subject? How is he representing that subject on his medium? How does the artist choose to create that drawing? Is he using agitated lines and strokes? Is it expressive? Or does he choose a more classical, precise way of showing his subject? All of these are questions that can be a springboard for a very meaningful discussion in the classroom with your students. The Yad Vashem website offers numerous online exhibitions featuring artwork from the Yad Vashem collection. Plus, teachers can find educational material on our educational site dealing with Holocaust art. Felix-Nussbaum was a German Jewish artist who became a refugee in Belgium after the Nazis came to power in 1933. On the eve of World War II, most countries in the world refused to accept Jewish refugees. Nussbaum painted the refugee as a way to demonstrate his plight as a Jew who had no place to go. Nussbaum uses very dark, muted colors. He imparts a feeling of hopelessness, despair, loss. The first thing we see when we look at this painting is an enormous globe. The globe is dark, it's in shadow. It gives us also a feeling of hopelessness. What does this globe symbolize? Does it show us a world that is entering a very dark period? Does it show us a world that is no longer open to people who are trying to find a place for themselves? The globe is sitting on a table that's shown in a very sharp, strange perspective, and the viewer's eye is taken to the very corner of this dark, morgue-like room to a figure bent over in despair. Who's the figure? Is it supposed to represent Felix Nussbaum himself, a man who no longer has a country? Does the figure represent the wandering Jew? At his feet is a stick and a bundle. Jews no longer have a place in Europe. Jews no longer have a place on the planet. As the viewer's eyes move around the canvas, they try to go out the door to the left, but this door offers no salvation as well. It's a very bleak landscape featuring trees with no leaves and very dark birds flying in the sky. We know from Jewish funerary art that a tree with no leaves on it symbolizes a life cut short. And as we look at this picture, we're left with a feeling of despair and hopelessness. Nussbaum never abandoned painting. He painted obsessively until 1944, when he and his wife were captured by the Nazis. They were sent to Auschwitz and murdered. Halina Olomucki was born in 1919 in Warsaw, Poland. Her drawings are some of the very few that survive to bear witness to the Warsaw Ghetto. Let's look at the face of this young boy. He doesn't look like a healthy child. His eyes are ringed by dark lines. He's very gaunt. His clothing is the clothing of a beggar. They're patched, they're baggy. He is a child who is suffering. We have to put this drawing into its historical context. This was made in Warsaw Ghetto, and it raises questions. Why is this boy so poor? Why is he selling armbands? Why is a boy his age on the street selling armbands and not in school? We can discuss Halina's artistic choices with students. Why did she choose to draw this in such an expressive way? She doesn't want to show intimate details of this child. She doesn't want to show every eyelash. She doesn't want to put him in a context. Her idea is more to show her feelings and emotions regarding this little boy's suffering. What is she thinking about this child? What is her reaction to this child's state? And how does she express that through her strokes and lines? Halina Olomucki died in Ashkelon, Israel in 2007. Karl Deutsch was a Jewish Belgian artist. In 1941-42, in Nazi-occupied Antwerp, with the situation of the Jews worsening daily, Deutsch created a beautiful and unusual gift for his daughter Ingrid's second birthday. He created a large, richly decorated box with Hebrew and English writing on it. Inside were 99 richly illustrated scenes from the Bible. The perception that Holocaust art has to be dark, grim, brooding is not always the case. There were some artists who used vivid, bright colors to express themselves. The biblical white dove that Noah sends to find land and ascertain that life can begin anew is always portrayed as a pristine white bird. Here we have something very different. We have a common pigeon. It has beautiful bright colors, especially the blue background, and it appears to be sitting on a black slate. What was the motivation for Karl Deutsch to use this pigeon? Perhaps it's a symbol that one day peace will be restored as well. This album of beautiful, colorful drawings remains a legacy of a father to a little girl. Karl Deutsch was murdered in Buchenwald in 1944. After the war, his daughter Ingrid and her grandmother, who had survived in hiding, came back to the house. Everything had been looted, taken away, except for the box.